Characteristics of an ecosystem. Number one, they must have a constant source of energy. Most of the time this comes from the sun, although there are some environments where it comes from other places. We will talk about that. Number two, populations of organisms are able to store the energy in the form of organic compounds, which we know as ATP. Number three, a continuous cycling of materials between populations and their environment. The most common one that you've probably heard is the water cycle. And number four, a flow of energy from one population to another, meaning that energy is transferred from one individual to another over time. A little more on energy. Like I said, most energy for all ecosystems is the sun. That is where it all starts. However, there are a few ecosystems, for example, ecosystems on the ocean floor that do not have access to the sunlight, that they use heat as their energy source to begin for ecosystems. Energy flow and nutritional relationships. These are interactions in an ecosystem that provide organisms with the nutrients it needs. The first type of relationship is a producer, and you know producers as autotrophs. These types of organisms can make their own food using sun and water and normally carbon dioxide. The second is called a consumer or a heterotroph, and these are organisms that depend upon other organisms for their food. So essentially these are the organisms that have to eat in order to get their energy. And the third is called a decomposer. And these are organisms that break down and obtain energy from dead organic matter. These are the organisms that break down the animals that have died and get their nutrition in that way. Food chains show how energy stored by producers is passed through an ecosystem. Food chain essentially is a series of steps in which organisms transfer energy by eating or being eaten. So you can see in this picture that it starts on the bottom with some grass, okay, in the grass in the grasshopper. The grasshopper gives energy to the frog. The frog then is eaten by the snake, and the snake then is eaten by the hawk. So as they eat or are eaten, that energy is transferred to new organisms throughout that food chain. A food web is a little bit different in the fact that it takes into account many more organisms within the environment. It's much more complex, shows many more interactions between various organisms. And you can see in the example here that there are lots of different arrows showing how that energy is being transferred throughout that ecosystem. Each one of those steps as that energy is transferred is considered a trophic level. And as you move up that food chain, less energy is transferred. And this is because some of those organisms use that energy in order to survive. So if we were just to show this, all energy starts again with the sun most of the time, goes to the producers. The producers transfer the energy to herbivores, which are things that eat plants. When those are eaten, it transfers the energy to the carnivores. And finally, the top of the food chain would be the top carnivore. And you'll notice that they're getting much less energy transferred as you move up that pyramid.